Hello, good evening everyone. Everybody must be very socially isolated, at least physically. But good evening wherever you are. It should be good if you have a good reason to be socially isolated. But still we are not socially isolated because we are able to stream these teachings as the last session of this term. So therefore, I have the good support of Jorg and Paul here, technically to be able to offer this teachings, continuation, wherever you are tuning from. Of course, most of you who have been tuning in as a regular, attending these sessions in person, as well as wherever you have been. So thank you for joining us. But before we continue with the class, the topic, I have been asked by someone to say a few words how we can best learn to deal with these kind of situations while we are all isolated and fearing for the world and knowing all the toll of the disease is affecting and many people all around the world. Everybody's basically locked down everywhere. Even countries or places where there is no real actual signs of this disease. They're all so frightened to death having to deal with this. I suppose we are so comfortable in our modern world, thinking that our science and our technology and our progress has managed to ward off and through vaccination and many diseases. But from the Buddhist point of view, the idea of death, a certainty of death, has to be always considered in our everyday life. So after all, it's not really fear of a virus, but fear of really death. Because if virus does not infect us, we think we can live peacefully or fearlessly because we don't have virus. But the end result of virus or not virus is that we will still die. So while we might be able to self-isolate and take precaution somewhere, but we should think of the countless people, our true soldiers of peace, who are not willing to be isolated in some comfortable home, but having to be there in the front line of working, many nurses and doctors. And we should rejoice how much a big one world we are, that when it comes to, so those who have really committed to be the soldier of peace when they are willing to put their time and effort to be conscripted, so to speak, to go where they need to go instead of choosing to be self-isolated. So we should really think about not so much of the tragedy and danger of this disease, but while it is, but at the same time we should think of all the goodness of humanity. We look from individual healthcare workers to international cooperation and government level, how much stimulus package, how much they try to help the individuals who may have lost a job or who could not work or whatever, how much really support there is around the world. So it's really important not to become overwhelmed or drowned into this fear of us contracting the illness or dying, while we have fear of many things, and the virus happened to be most immediate one that we are referring to, but at the same time we should think what we normally do not realize how fragile and how easy our life can be flooded away or destroyed. But we come to know that life is very, very fragile, death is certain, and so therefore when the time of death is or manner of death is never certain. Yeah, so people who went overseas and they never knew they're going to contract these illnesses, they're never going to bring the disease to the land, yet they did. So, and others who went out with those friends and people never knew that they're going to catch a disease by going out with their friends, and yet they did. They never thought that that meeting will amount to catching illness, let alone the cause of death. But while we have a good reason to think that this virus and its infection has frightened and troubled a number of people, but still the death toll that we have is relatively lower. But then there are many people who are dying, whose death toll of dying from other causes of death, if we were to have these reported each day, I don't think we will ever be even sitting up and eating food. If every day we heard all the number of people dying from various causes of death every day, if we were just focus on that, it will be much more than the toll of death that we are being reported due to this virus. So we have to put in perspective. At the same time, realistically thinking how fortunate we are to be healthy and supported from all kinds of causes of death. And this may be a little bit too difficult because of the contagiousness of it. So it's important to focus not only on the good of humanity and the fortune that we have, but at the same time feel compassion and kind to other people who are working around the clock to make possible to develop a vaccine, to cure those who are sick, to continuously work around the clock to care for those inpatient, and also to doing the tests. Thousands and thousands of people are doing tests themselves, exposing to likelihood of contracting illness. So we should really think of others who are doing so much to contain this illness, to help those who are infected, who are dying, and so on. Instead of thinking, I cannot cope with this, thinking, fearing of oneself catching the disease or oneself dying. So it's very important not to think too much of our own well-being while the precautions should be taken, but focus on the good and how fragile our life is, and how therefore that life it should be best lived while we have the excellent opportunity we do. So with this in mind, those who have prayers, meditations, those who have things to do personally in your time, instead of feeling almost bored or dull, not being able to go to work or don't even have a job, find a good book or read good books, or go back to your prayers and meditations and mantras and those things, and not really entertain thoughts that are actually only compounding to the fear and anxiety and depression that this can exacerbate to those who don't have the strategy. So therefore, I would like to urge all of you to do that. Whether with a spiritual faith or not spiritual faith, it's very good to do some useful things with your loved ones, families. So sometimes people don't have enough time to spend with the loved ones, through kids or grandparents, if they happen to live in the same household. Maybe you should give some quality time and attention to each other and look after, have some good conversation, talk about how fragile life is and how best we can revisit our way of living. and therefore try to do something useful while at home. It is for this very reason we have decided not to stop, the teachings or programs, but to take the advantage of these technologies and of these teachings. So, with this general statement about the virus, I wish you all, or actually learn to grow, to become wise and be thoughtful and try to start to think of living while we are alive. Death is certain, with or without virus. With this in mind, we need to reinvent our way of how to best execute the time we have while we are at home. Usually people complain having no time to do their study or prayer or practice. Now you can't complain that. Now you have plenty of time and do those things, but not for your own self, for the benefit of all other living beings. So I thought that I would say just that. And now we go back to our topic of these teachings, which is a very classical Buddhist text of middle way, how to enter a way or thought, meditation and philosophy to embrace the middle way instead of falling into the extremes. So this very idea of fear of death is a really eternalist, because clinging on to a life that is by nature impermanent, transient, and thinking that we will not die, we shouldn't die, and we deny, and being sort of angry and sort of avoiding the idea of death is the kind of the wrong view of eternalists, as we are going to live long and permanent and so on, which we won't. So we definitely need to learn how to enter into the middle way by way of not clinging to the idea of a fixed permanent life or body. So therefore, from that point of view, this text is very, very relevant. Of course, the subject that we are discussing and in the present chapter is largely on the subject of emptiness. So now we're go back. Those who are following in our classes, we last week stopped on page 300, we finished the verse number 163. And so now we're going to go and look from the same page with about the verse number 164, starting with the third. Observed object of self-grasping is established through ignorance. So, meaning that the subject is that things that we actually develop self-grasping to, the object itself is perceived ignorantly as such. So this is shown by next verse, which I will first read in Tibetan. Kalde tadun tonam nganjin lo rabdun junshi te kayen ngayen zelo chungwe dateni mata tapar timule knows. But linked to this, continuously and strongly, beings cling to I. And all that I possess is conceived as mine. And this self will manifest empirically the fruit of ignorance, as long as it's not subject to analysis. So this verse tries to illustrate that the self exists uninvestigated. Yeah, when we do not investigate, the self seem to exist. Also, same goes with the death. When we don't investigate, it seems that that permanent self exists. Because of the uninvestigated nature of the life, we couldn't stand the idea that life may be impermanent. So therefore, so when we don't investigate the impermanence of life, then the life seems to be permanent. So as soon as there's any sign of life being impermanent or transient or whatever, then we have the fear of suffering. So all our sufferings comes from uninvestigated. So the grasping to impermanent things as a permanent, and insubstantial things as a substantial, and unsatisfactory things as satisfactory, no self as self. So these are some of the fundamental errors, wrong views that has left uninvestigated. So therefore, here says that this very verse is saying that self seems to exist uninvestigated, and by depending on or as a result of confusion. Yeah, by depending on not having to use one's sharp, smart mind to think that I am impermanent, because one doesn't think I'm impermanent or my health is impermanent, or and so on. One doesn't want to sit with things like that because of idleness, and therefore we are confused. We think it is permanent when actually it is not. Because of not examining, we are confused in thinking what is with what isn't, what is. The self exists uninvestigated through worldly renown. It's because it's not just you and me, so to speak, but the whole world seems to think that self truly exists, and that life is permanent, that health should stay same. And every day we ask each other, how are you? As if it should be you should remain healthy, you should remain strong. But of course it is. The very question itself is contradictory, because if it is permanent, we don't have to ask how are you, because we know he is well anyway, he's already permanent. So the very underlying cause of our question itself is based on confusion. We think it's a permanent, but we have a feeling it may not be. Yeah, this teaching says self exists uninvestigated through worldly renown and arises from this confusion. So this means, then what self? What kind of self? Self with respect to whom? So we need to now ask these kind of pertinent questions. This refers to the self to which self-grasping arises in the general worldly mind, and the self in relation to which worldly beings have a possessive grasping, such as this is mine. The first three lines we just read explain the type of self that is acceptable in the worldly sense, insofar as it is not investigated. So when nobody investigate, for instance, our hair, then we think we have truly existing hair. But we were to look for the real hair after eliminating each other hair. Every single piece of hair were to be eliminated, there's really no hair. Like that, when we don't investigate it, there seems to be a easy reason to develop a self-grasping, as there is so-called an object, as if that exists from its own side, when we don't actually investigate it. But when we investigate, the object itself has many non-selves. So that by the time we eliminate all the non-self, then what sort of self are you going to find that truly exists? So the self that will function as an object of self-grasping, a self because of which people have possessive grasping, this kind of self is acceptable as far as it's not investigated. So worldly people are too idle to investigate the self or with permanent, But when if as soon as they investigate, say we might think our blood pressure is the same as before, but then we realize, maybe we should have a blood test. Then we realize, as soon as we investigate, the blood test shows that we have a sign of an increase of a particular health trouble or not. So therefore, as soon as we investigate, all those people are having tested for this virus. They all thought they're fine. They just went to holiday. They're fine. They just went out with a friend, came home. But as they went through the test, investigation, then they realized they have no truly existing healthy body. It's already infected by the virus. So you can tell from investigation, what we thought healthy is not healthy, what we thought permanent was not permanent, what we thought self is not self. The observed object of self-grasping is established through this kind of uninvestigated ignorance. As long as it is not investigated, we have a feeling as there is truly existing self. Not only that, the problem that you think is someone else, or problem that you think is this or that, if you investigate it, there is no real truly existing problem to be found, let alone need to be solved. The only thing you need to solve the problem is by realizing that even the problem itself does not truly exist. So this whole topic about entering in the middle way is how not to sit idly in thinking that there is a truly existing problem without investigating what is the problem. As soon as you investigate the problem, you realize it can be isolated, it can be cured, you can drink certain things, you can have this medication, you can take all the precautions. Slowly, even the people we thought was infected, truly infected, the majority are all cured. So therefore, the observed object of self-grasping is established through ignorance. Likewise, observed object of problem is established through ignorance. So if the problem is established through ignorance, remedy has to develop by investigation, how we become ignorant. From ignorance, one grasps at the self, even though self does not exist substantially. Out of that comes progressive grasping, and all of these things then arise. They are all acceptable, provided that they are not analyzed and investigated. So that's right. When we don't investigate, then everything seems truly existent. But when you investigate, everything one by one is eliminated, and so therefore it's like the tip of the hair. You can't say tip of the hair is hair. Hair is only a whole body of the hairs. When I investigate it, then we call hair. But when you look for the hair, each of them are shaven or cut away. There's really no truly existing hair. Likewise, the self also, because self is imputed to the aggregate, and other things are imputed to phenomena. So that's why this verse goes to say how things appear to exist as self and mind without doing the investigation. So as soon as you investigate, when you discern, when you examine, then you will be able to distinguish. You'll be able to find not truly existing self or phenomena for that matter. Now we come to the fourth point. This process also negates mind. So this process of investigating self, not finding the self, also would naturally negate the mind, the possessor. If the possessor is not truly exist, then what is the possessor? Possession itself would be in big question. That is this possessiveness. This is illustrated by the verse number 165, but the first two lines is Kanshu Chebo mejen lemeba tejedaki dame pariyo means without a worker there is no work performed, and likewise without I there is no mind. So when the self is proved through analysis to be non-existing or do not truly exist from itself other than us imputing it, then of course the progressive grasping have no validity. So therefore to say my health or my ill health, my sickness, my problem, my debt, my emotional problem, all these things also we have to investigate it. Because if you investigate the self not to be existed, then everything what the possession of the self is could not have a true existence. So therefore everything is based on this confusion and failure or laziness from investigating. If you investigate it, there is no possessor, and how could there be possession? So this completes applying this to the meaning of what we have been talking. This means that this is compared to the analogy of the horse cart. We were talking about the horse cart, and so here like this, the self and the possession of the self do not truly existing. Third is showing the result of such an analysis. So what is the purpose of using these analogies and using this investigation is illustrated by the next remaining 2 lines of the same verse. So this perceiving that both I and mine, or you and yours, are void, the yogi will be utterly set free. So therefore, even if somebody say it's your problem, it's your fault, such a yogi do not feel his or her accusation will not cause any problem. The yogi will be utterly set free because he knows these are only when people don't investigate. Not only other people accuse somebody or to us, or even ourselves, when we shouldn't worry about the accusation. We have to actually look at the accusation itself. Accusation itself, when you look carefully, there's no I. How could there be any faults of I that truly existing? Remember, when we say it's empty, means empty of true existence. It doesn't mean empty of existence. So therefore, the practitioner, through this ultimate analysis, so we as a person who is listening and thinking along these lines of Chandrakirti's assertions, we should be able to come to the conclusion that a self that is gender, that is wealthy, that is sick, or that is sad, or that is defeated, that these things does not exist as it is labeled when investigated. When not investigated, if you would merely think it exists only as labeled, it does on the relative level. But when you examine whether as it is merely labeled exists as much as it is labeled, it doesn't. Or that self is empty of inherent existence, and that self-possessed entities are also empty of inherent existence. Even somebody calls you lazy or selfish or whatever, the yogi will not be harmed by such a statement. Because it says in the Heart Sutra, there is no sound. So who hears the sound? Who hears the sound? If there is no I, there is no I grasping, self-grasping to the I, how would he choose one statement to be preferable, another statement to be abusive? So therefore, the very hurting, very attachment to pleasant statement and remark to the negative statement comes from grasping to the self as an ignorant basis. Based on that ignorance, then there appears to exist. But the yogi, who is able to meditate, perceiving that both I and mine are empty of inherent existence. So we need to see that. The Nanjarpathis, that yogi, how it doesn't make him yogi because he do some few exercise in the morning. It doesn't make him yogi because he's got a long beard. It doesn't make him yogi because he can put his feet on his neck and then walk on the hands or something. The yogi is one who does not get caught in the suffering of I and me and mine. When he knows they are both merely labeled by the conventional word, but actually there is no truly existing self. That is the meaning here. So here it is not so much philosophizing what is, what isn't, and what is. We're saying, where does our suffering come from? Grasping to I with body or feeling or culture or gender, all these social problems these days is not because there are no conventional social problems, but there is this, people are grasping too much to gender. People are so much divided by gender. People are so much divided by culture or creed or religion or philosophy or clubs or whatever. They're developing so grasping that we are this, we are northerners or we are easterners or whatever it is, and then develop so much grasping to that, and then they couldn't accept the other at all because of their own grasping. Whereas the yogi who knows how not to grasp through the self or the name or gender like that, then he will be liberated. Yeah, the yogi will be liberated. The yogi will be liberated. Yogi is one who has such abundant knowledge, one who has such abundance of knowledge that he actually can relish his knowledge as the best food. And even meditators are try to sit to incubate such a knowledge in order to disown the wrong notion of self and try to meditate to see the empty of inherent existence of body or things is happening, things doesn't happening for you. All these fears of death mainly comes from the grasping to the body as truly existing. Even without the virus, we are dying, We are dying every minute, every week. We're walking towards the inevitable destination. We are not. You can isolate from people. You can isolate from others as an immediate condition of death or virus we might be avoiding. But actual death we could never delay. We could never delay, or we could never escape. Why? This doesn't mean yogi should be careless about his health or whatever. So this doesn't mean yogi should be careless, that he thinks he has no self and then he just don't care about the hygiene and all of that. That's not the case, because that's a nihilistic view. That's exactly the opposite view. They're trying to think that our life is only in danger because of virus, and try to become so pedantic, so obsessed with that, to the extent of creating another problem on top of the danger virus. That's the eternalistic view. So middle way is yes, take all the conventional precautions, but never think that you are you don't have it. You will not experience death, and death is not going to come. No, death probably will be quickened by this kind of attitude. But if one were to say that that this fear and anxiety that whole world faces is because they're grasping to I and things as permanent and truly existing. And they don't realize that these things do not last long. Even ourselves are not lasting. There will be no lasting. Even the body that we try to protect, it will be the remains we have to leave behind. We can never isolate the body from the world. We have to be left, body have to be left like a snake skin. So, with this in mind, we need to, therefore, understand why this kind of Buddhist teachings on empty of inherent existence is a great liberator from the suffering and its causes due to ignorance, grasping to impermanent things as permanent, no self as truly existing, eternally existing. And this kind of wrong views almost requires us all to go back to another 20 years of schooling to study this kind of text. So we are just trying to fit in one lesson a week as a kind of hobby sort of thing. But these kind of texts are studied for many years by authentic monastic cultures where they teach. So therefore, it is very important that we need to look at how to make these teachings relevant to our everyday to-day crisis. It's not just for people who are interested in philosophy. They just meet once a week on Tuesday or like that. It is whoever has suffering due to clinging and grasping to self as true and impermanence as permanent. These are the real reason. Chandrakirti's teaching is how to prevent them from falling into nihilism and eternalism, to help them to guide them to the middle way, so they do not fall into this kind of wrong view. When the yogi means the one who has the Tibetan word yogi is Naljorpa. Naljorpa is for masculine, and female called Naljorma. Nal has a meaning of the word natural, and Jor has a meaning of wealth or abundance. So natural abundance, what is that? Spiritual wisdom that comes from meditation. So usually yogis are who meditate. Yogis aren't necessarily who are doing lots of exercise and lots of postures. People even these days call them yogi. Of course, we have no ownership of word yogi, saying they shouldn't call a yogi. But remember, the word meaning of yoga and yogi is very profound Indian meaning. That is just the natural abundance. The best wealth is spiritual wisdom. Best wealth is contentment. And best knowledge is the true knowledge of what actually is. So one who has the true knowledge fears not death and causes of it. If he really fears death, the real direct cause of death is birth. And so to stop next life's birth, one needs to live meaningfully in this life so that there is no one repetitive life again will come about. So he will attain liberation. Liberation meaning liberation from fear of death, because he's dying. He can't, by fearing, if you can avoid, you can do. Fear is based on ignorance. Ignorance of not knowing no self as self. So we need to liberate from that. This is the result of ultimate analysis, that all this analysis we've been talking about in investigation, the person will gain liberation. They talk about salvation in other religious traditions. I don't know how they define that. But in Buddhism, liberation meaning liberation from karma and affliction. Karma and affliction is is basic, but on top of that, one has to gain liberation from cognitive obscuration. When you're free from the karma, affliction, and cognitive obscuration, then you have liberation. Here it says the yogi will be liberated from these three. Particularly the last, cognitive obscuration. So we have covered that part. Now we are moving on to the next point, the third, applying this style of reasoning. Now, if you care to understand how this reasoning will help you to become less confused and less fearful, now you should learn to apply this style reasoning to all things, not just you, self. And this has three subdivisions. First, applying to all entities that are imputed dependently. So everything else is imputed dependently. Imputed meaning labeled. And even if you, it doesn't mean labeling itself is the thing. That there is also something that is labeling base. Labeling base. You don't call glass a horse, for instance. So the imputability of the glass as a glass has to be relatively understood as a glass. So, but if the word imputation itself is therefore dependent. So this is shown by next verse. So, Pumpa nambu rende magdan naksa tingwan junxing tang, kanjim xingdan tendan dwene laso ngonam kangdat kang, 대신 강다 권에 견디 녀바 대남 도자 때 간주 토한 때는 직den게 렌직 주면 제체로. So this list quite a few points. So in verse number 166, vases, canvas, bucklers, armies, forests, garlands, trees, houses. He's called chariots. I will call vehicles, hostelries. And all such things, so you can list any of the things. It doesn't have to be just these lot, because Chandrakirti just happened to choose those key entities, objects that common people designate. Common people label and designate, depend on their parts. They cannot just designate what they want to designate. They have to designate depending to the things what they are. That what parts they constitute to qualify them to call the name. For instance, the tripod here. I can't call tripod the table or glass. Tripod has three pieces that join together. So dependent on their parts. accept as such. So worldly people usually say whatever is imputed, the thing that is imputed is dependent on the imputability of the parts that it has. For Buddha did not quarrel with this world. Means Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching was not try to contradict to how the worldly people designate and impute and label and then determine what a thing is, distinguishable from tripod from table, and table from bench, and bench from chair, and chair from sofa. All these things, Buddha did not quarrel with the world. He actually agree with the world for what the ordinary things are. But more importantly, why these things are done is so that we actually need to now integrate this analysis we did with the self with all the other objects, so that you do not think those objects are truly existing entities by themselves, independently, inherently, and unitarily. So this means that to the extent that analytical analysis is not made, when you don't make any analysis, as explained earlier with the self, when one doesn't examine, then on the basis of confusion, it is what I am, because when one doesn't investigate, we can accept all these things that are designated in the world. All these things are also, by not investigating, when you don't investigate it, they are all designated and labeled, and then we think the thing is exactly independently existing from the object from its own self. Then we should therefore use this understanding. The practitioner also accepts whatever the worldly mind accepts. We also should accept whatever the worldly mind says. This is a tripod. You don't argue saying no, that's a table, or you don't say to the table, no, that's a sink, or whatever it is. You don't quarrel with that. We will have all these things such as pots, woolen clothes, canvas, like vases, everything that is mentioned, because they are all established depending on their parts and components. Things are mainly components and aggregated. So they are what they call, they are transient collection. They are a collection of many things that is not the whole itself. We can have the existence of a pot by depending on its parts. The pot has the bottom, pot has the belly, pot has the spout, pot has the neck, pot has the top, and so on. There is no one wholly existing pot that independently exists or permanently exists. If it's a permanently exists, it should never be made. All pots are made from non-pots. So the clay, so it looks like pot now, but actually was clay in some time. It looks clay when the pot is being made from clay, but clay was not clay. Clay was actually dust, maybe, and so on. So when you look at that, all the parts, such as water, such as the sand and the particles and fire and effort and all of those components came together to create the thing. We can have the existence of a pot by depending on its parts. In the same way, we can have the existence of woolen cloth by depending on the components. You can say the yarns, the patterns, the weaver, and the colors, and knots, and designs, and all of that. When you list all the things that went to make the yarn or make the carpet, you wouldn't. There is no truly existing carpet. Carpet also is, some are runners. I mean, they're not running. I don't know why they're called runners. Oh, then you say, no, they're little flat, long ones. So even that you have to, runner doesn't exist from its own side. Runner. So all carpets are all the things that made have still different shapes, different length. Some are put in the lounge room, others just on the bedside, others on the chair, others just under the foot. So you can see there are many things. In the same way, self is acceptable by depending on its many parts. So we can list the self, all the parts of the self from the skin to the marrows. You just look at the marrow, you can't say the marrow, the marrow is not self, and so is not the skin, and then everything in between. So by the time you eliminate all of that, investigate that you don't find self. In this same way, all these things are acceptable in the worldly sense. The same process applied to all the designated entities. So this is basically saying Buddha's teaching is not there to contradict the worldly conventions. That's the worldly conventions. So it's not contradicting with that. The second is applying specifically to all entities of action and agent by looking at this. This is explained by next verse. Yenla yonte docha tsenyi tane pushing laso tang. Yonte cheyen la chen chadang tsenshi mela so da dang. Tenam shingde namje chebe namde yoba mayin shing. Tele shindu kyuban jikden tabe gone yomayin. Yeah, so therefore the parts and parts possessors, qualities and qualified, desire and those desiring, define and definition, fire and fuel, subjected, like a chariot. So they're talking about the interrelationship between the parts and part possessor and qualities and one who has the qualifications, and desire itself and those who desiring it. And because you can't have a desire exist by itself. And desire is, when you talk about desire, whose desire? Straight away we have to look at someone else's, whose wish is that? Whose order is that? When you get a coffee when someone brings a coffee or food, a plate of food on the restaurant, you say, whose order is that? So like this, someone has to desire and order that food, then only there is that food. If nobody wants it, go back to the kitchen. Likewise, there is no truly existing food that is desirable unless there's somebody else desiring it. Somebody have to desire it, then the desirable become desirable. But for how long it was desired? Likewise, defined in definition, fire and fuel, like a chariot. How to sevenfold analysis are shown to be devoid of real existence. When you use those sevenfold analysis we actually talked about above, and then you realize none of these things seem to have real, true, independent, unitary, and substantial existence. And that's very important. Yet, by worldly, everyday convention, they exist indeed. So when we investigate it, they don't have any existence whatsoever. But when you don't investigate it, when you just live in a conventional world, they have the relative existence. So that's why I call relative truth. Relative truth. Yeah, relatively, it is a true. For the ordinary people who don't see the ultimate truth, everything is relatively existing. So therefore, there is that existence. So this verse is explained by the commentary. Action and agent. Action and agent simply refers to like a carpenter and carpentry work, and the engineer and his mechanical work, or scientist and his scientific experiment. So these are talking about agent, action and agent. As we read in earlier verse, the same process was applied to all things designated in the worldly sense. So there isn't anything that exists from its own side. Like even you say scientific discovery, we say whose discovery? Someone has to do the action of discovering, then only there is a discovering. So this verse specifically applies the process to all those entities that have the relationship of an agent and object of agent or object of action. The part possessor are the agents and parts are the objects of actions. So this is talking about relationship between the parts and parts of possessor. In the same way, the fire is the agent, firewood is the object of action. Yeah, firewood is the object from which the fire will be made. So fire itself is a product of wood, but wood itself is not fire. But when the fire come in contact with the agent, the fire, then it becomes firewood. The action of burning takes place as a result of that. So there's nothing happens by itself. This is what I mean. Because it says someone, yes, as you have an accident, you don't have a self-accident. But at the same time, if you have an accident, you hit somebody, people say you hit me, but actually you can't hit the other unless you were there. You know, if you have your car parked in your home, nobody hits you. So your existence is not only doesn't become a cause of accident. You have to be within the proximity of someone to be hit. So therefore, when you do get hit, they are interdependent. None of these things exist. So none of these agent and action exists by itself. It exists as there is codependency between the agent and action and other conditions that are immediately causing that. You know, if say the virus truly existed, we can't self-isolate it. We can't educate it, we can't wash our hands, we can't do any of these things because it exists truly. No, it doesn't. Because of that, we can isolate it. We can make sure that it 1 feet too much, or one, they say 2 meters was enough or something. That was really good news. If you can just keep away from everyone 2 meters, then you won't have any virus. I mean, that's the most easiest way to not catch disease. But that's not the case. That's only one of the many things. So in the same way, none of these things exist if analyzed through the 7-point reasoning, but if they are not subject to analysis, they do exist. Yeah, when we don't examine, it exists. You know, when somebody rang me the other day, of course he, you know, really means it. They worry about everybody and how best we can respond to this. And first he thought it was terrible, but then he said when he looked at the window, everything's fine. Everything's fine, beautiful weather, they don't know what he's talking about. So it's like that. When we investigate, it's not a big thing, you know. So, but even that, if someone who has really got the real problem, he just completely not struggling with the death, he's quite happy to die, it's not a real problem. No real problem, it's not truly existing problem. He just died in peace, we call it, you know, died in peace, you know. The other schools try to establish worldly things through analysis, although if you perform analysis, you will not be able to find any kind of existence. So this is talking about how Madhyamika are soul searchers. They are searching for the so-called soul or anything, whether it's permanently truly exists. As long as you're operating at the worldly level, you simply accept things without analyzing them. You just don't accept, you know. You don't just accept, you know. The other day we have a spectacular, didn't we? You guys don't know because you were not there, so you can't tell. But I can tell you. We were all eating around the table, you know. We thought we were eating around the table. We weren't eating the table, that's for sure. But we were all eating food. We were all eating food. And so everybody was eating. The person who's really most selfless of all, who was serving everybody at the last one, the person have some food on the plate. Then everybody has nearly finished the food eating and gone inside the mouth. Of course, that stand into that person didn't get to eat much. The whole plate fell on his lap. Now everybody thought that's a huge problem, you know. And I was saying, what's the difference, you know? What's the difference? We have all the food inside what's the problem? They said, oh, he has all the food on his lap. I said, what's the difference? We have all the food became our lap, and he's got all the food on his lap. So the difference is that, you know, we have all the food inside our lap, became the lap, and he has yet to make the food part of his lap. So only the demarcation between the food and his lap was the skin and the stomach. So laughing is like that. If we analyze it, of course, in a worldly sense, it's a very kind of such a stupid example. But if you analyze carefully, yeah, That's right. Actually, everybody has an empty plate, not just him. His empty plate was because he emptied on the lap. We emptied inside the lap. so, so in the end, there was never any food in the lap. And soon there won't be any food even inside the lap. Let alone the one who has on the lap, if he wash it, there will be no food whatsoever. How long is the food on the lap? It's impermanent. It doesn't truly exist at all. Even those who put the food, successfully put the food as a part of the lap, will soon go down, soon will go, and they will have to dispose it in another way. If you don't analyze, this is the whole thing. Madhyamika is just like investigating, all of us checking. If you don't analyze, you can all accept all these things as truly existing. And that's all the problem, is truly existing, because you don't investigate. What are you talking about? When you don't investigate, there seems to be truly existing, But when you examine it, even this problem, let alone the problem, the person who has the problem also doesn't exist. Of course, this is much more easily said than done. So you can say that to me, but but we have to think like this if we are learning to enter into the middle way. Okay. So now the third is applying to all the entities of cause and effect. So not just everything is imputed as agent and actor. Now you can look at what the cause and effect has three subdivisions. The first is cause and effect have no intrinsic nature, because we might say everything exists because this is caused by that, this is the result of that cause. You can't just deny that the virus is not the cause of death. Look, people are dying. You can say that. The first cause and effect have no intrinsic nature through previous reasoning. This is illustrated by one verse, which is verse number 168. Kalde gyui kebra chaki teda na gyu te yinshin kalden drivu mege nane teme gyume jendun gyur. Drivu yana gyuna kevan gyuwa te yichi kanle kanshin gyuwa kanshin lengar kanshin gyurte dro. Wow. So that it says, if a thing produces an effect, because we're talking about a thing causing the problem or whatever, thing produces effect, it indeed is a cause. So we are not denying that it is a cause. The word a is a singular, And if no fruits appear, meaning that the cause that we create do not produce any fruit, there is no cause and no production. And as for the result, it's only if the cause exists that it comes into being. So the result also comes into existence only if there is a cause. Tell me, therefore, which derives from which, and what precedes the other. So this is very important, because we think that cause is the cause, truly existing cause. Truly existing cause of death is virus, they think, They don't realize that. The virus is just a small part of it. The root cause of the death is not virus. The root cause of death is birth. So that's very important. To think the root cause of death is virus, then those who don't catch the virus will always live continuously, live forever. So why have all the people died before this virus came about? See, we haven't investigated that. So there are many other causes of death, not just a cause of death. They say, so many people died of that virus, as the virus is the cause. No, virus is a cause, but not the cause. Very important, this between this definite article and indefinite article. While linguistically we say a or the, big thing in English language, whether we're talking about a man or the man, When you say that something is the cause, then we think we eliminate everything else as nothing to do with it. As that cause is truly existent by itself. That is the independent cause of everything. When we do that, we have so much wrong extreme view. And we do not enter in the middle way. Sure, immediate cause might be the virus, but there are many, what do we call root cause, concomitant cause. There are many objective cause. There are many different causes in Buddhist philosophy. So therefore, it is important to know. If there is a result is produced, it indeed has a cause. Yeah. So here it is really talking the importance of making the thorough analysis concerning the cause and effect, instead of saying this is the cause, this is the result as two things. If ultimate analysis is carried out, you cannot have the existence of these things. These things means cause independently, a cause independent. Generally, we can have the existence of a cause when a thing produces something. So that's generally speaking. Only then it can be called a cause. But if it doesn't produce anything, it is not a cause. Now, an effect or a result is also such that if there is a cause that it produces it, only then it can be called a result. So that's a relative level. We are not arguing with that. Without depending on a cause, it cannot be called a result. So therefore, the result is also dependent on the cause, as is the cause dependent on the result. This means that cause and result are dependent on each other. Yeah, without a cause, we cannot have the effect. Without an effect, we cannot have a cause. So if a death is without an effect, if there is a death, we cannot without death. There cannot even be a virus. Yeah. So the virus itself is really nothing if there is no death. So if the effect if the virus is a death, then you can if there is no effect called there is no death at all prior to this virus. And then we cannot have a truly existing virus that is cause of death, which supposedly exists first. Yeah, which of these two exists first? Tell me. Therefore, which derives from which, and what precedes the other. This means between the cause and effect, which is the first and which is the next. We cannot identify. We cannot identify. I think this is a typing error. We cannot identify this because each is dependent on each other. Yeah. We can't say which came first. Probably if the person is not there before the virus, therefore the virus could not cause the death. Yeah. So, but therefore the cause of the virus is the person. Virusness of the virus is not because the virus is virus, but because the person without the person, the virus could not cause anybody's death. So there's no truly existing cause. This is what I mean. If you try to find out in a substantial manner whether the cause exists before the effect, you will not find a cause that exists before the effect. Before the effect. Yeah, the virus is not a virus unless it is mutually existing thing. This is because without the production of an effect, a thing cannot be called a cause. Yeah. Thing cannot be called a cause. And in the case of fire and smoke, you cannot say that without depending on smoke, there cannot be fire. There cannot be a fire without depending on a smoke. The thing is, if these two are related to as cause and effect, the fire will become a cause only when there is smoke to depend on as an effect. Without making a smoke as an effect, the fire will not be a cause. To be a cause, a thing must depend on the existence of an effect. So they are mutually inclusive. So they are interdependent, and therefore you cannot prove the substantial existence of either. So therefore you can't say truly existing cause. If it's truly existing cause, we cannot find a vaccination. We just can't. Yeah, that's why time it doesn't give us to develop even the vaccination, even the vaccine cannot be developed without the virus. So therefore, you cannot, so at the moment maybe the virus is the cause of death, but soon the virus is the cause of its own death when we find the cure. So that is through the previous reasoning. They have no intrinsic nature. So therefore, we should think there are many causes. So if a person dies of a virus contraction, it may be called by this conventional society that he was killed by the coronavirus, but in reality, he has many other causes. His lifespan, his merit, his karma, this triple exhaustion would make him a very easy prey by smallest kind of smallest kinds of accident, smallest kind of accident would kill him. It doesn't have to catch a terrible virus. Yeah, but those who have not exhausted their lifespan, merit, and karma, we call triple exhaustion. If people haven't experienced triple exhaustion, even if they did contract the virus, they will recover. They are talking about, on 1/3 of the people who have been terribly, diagnosed with the disease actually recovered. And they're now wondering whether the person who recovered can ever catch the virus again or not. So probably not. See, the virus is not truly existent. The virus is not truly existing cause of death. If it is, then everyone who got it will kill. So therefore, we have statistics to show that you need many other causes and conditions to cause the death. Virus is not the cause of death. It can become a cause of death, immediate cause of death, because the person have exhausted his lifespan, merit and karma. That's why they say people who are an elderly age group, 60 or 70 above, particular other medical, they are much more vulnerable because their karma, lifespan itself is already 60, 70 above, and they have other medical conditions. See, these conditions are making it possible for the virus to become immediate condition to cause a death. So that's why we need to understand. We shouldn't be too frightened of virus, because virus is not truly has no true intrinsic existence. This doesn't mean you should take no precaution. You should not do any of the health and hygienic and so on. But at the same time, you shouldn't be so pedantic and so kind of a fundamentalist and become so obsessed with that. And that can cause more death. That can cause more death, It can cause almost unexpected death, So that's a very important point. And we need to make these kind of teachings. This is what I'm trying to, even though this kind of text doesn't talk anything about virus, by the way. So you must think that how we should read between the lines. What is this teaching pointing to us? His Holiness Dalai Lama says that make the teachings, Buddhist teachings of the 21st century. We have to investigate. If we read a couple of verses each night, what are we relating these to with the particular issues that you and your life and the world and its problems are facing? How could we learn to distress our mind and educate us, and so that we can learn to relate it with holistically, and therefore not stop living, still live meaningfully, do whatever you need to do, but don't let this curse of the virus rob your life. You have teachings of the Dharma, the panacea, the medicine, which can help you to reorganize your own thoughts. And don't live in the messy thought, saying, I'm going to die, whole world is going to come to an end. world is always coming to an end. It's just question is whose world? When it's you and my, like they say, how many people? Like how many people died? Yeah, they went world end, but the others are being born. They just celebrating first birthday. Come on, So there is no uniform whose world ends and whose world starts. Everybody has a different timing. So therefore, we shouldn't have this collective fear. If you look at the good from this situation, you see so many good. So we need to therefore make this teaching relevant, relevant. So meaningful. Even if you have many quotations, texts, but if you have to make it a reason. You have to make the rational and investigate logically how does it make sense. Say you might have something in your life that you think that's the problem and you really fixated, but when you really hear these teachings, that is not the cause. That is only one of the many causes and conditions. Wow, then you can just say, wow, if I can only think like this, then the yogi will be liberated. It said, the yogi who is able to relate to this, then he will be liberated. He will be not chained by worry, anxiety, fear, and attachment, and all of that. So that's why this is so important to know. Second, the cause and effect of no intrinsic nature through reasoning of contact and no contact. Now this is shown by next two verses. Kate kyugi gyue tene deje jena tei che teda nuba chikpe geje rewu tade mengyu shing. Soso nane gyunde gyumi namdan kepar mengyu la nipon deda pane dokba shenya yobar yurma yin. Wow. If you say the causes makes contact with the fruit that it produces, they share a single force and cause and fruit are not distinct. But if they stand apart, meaning the cause and effect are apart, non-cause does not differ from a cause. When these two cases are refuted, there is no third to take their place. Now, this verse is explained. If you believe that a cause produces an effect inherently, now this is what people believe wrongly. They say this is the cause. That's it. Because they think the cause produces the effect inherently. It should remain. It should remain even after investigation. So even you investigate, it should always be there. When something exists truly, that thing which you accept as existence should remain so even after investigation. Something that does not survive the process of investigation cannot be called truly existing. Now, if the cause truly produced the effect, this analysis should produce the effect even when subject to this type of investigation. If the cause produces an effect, does the cause produce an effect with the contact of the cause and effect, or without the cause and effect having any contact? So meaning one making the contact with the other, So that's why we are trying to avoid the contact. We are trying to avoid the contacting, because much of the communicability of the disease is contacting. So if the cause is the disease, and if the disease contact someone without disease, we're talking about how the effect comes. If you believe the production occurs with the cause and effect having contact, do you say that the potential of the cause and effect are the same or different? So that's what are you saying? Are you saying they are identical or they are different? If they are the same, the cause and effect, cause and potential of the cause and effect are same, then there's no producer. And there will be no difference between the producer and effect or between the cause and the effect. If you say that even after meeting or contacting, the potential of the cause and the effect are separate or other, so if that second is alternative, if that they are other, then there is no distinction between cause and non-cause. If it is the same, as we said before, then there is no difference between the cause and effect. Having rejected the two alternatives, there is no other possibilities. There is no other possibility. So they are neither same, no separate. If they stand apart, meaning if the cause and effect stand apart without any contact, refers to production occurring without meeting, without any contact. Without producing any contact, because a thing must fall by. If in that case, cause and non-cause could not be distinguished. Just as the non-cause does not form a contact with the effect, in the same way, the cause does not form a contact with the effect. Having rejected both of these, there is no other possibility. This means that there is no possibility of production apart from these two. Yeah. So the production must occur either through the contact of cause and effect, or without the contact of the cause and effect. So therefore, without the contact, there is no a cause that is truly existing, truly true cause. So the virus is not true cause of death unless it makes contact with the person, for instance. But if the cause is truly existing, then as soon as you get it, everybody will die. Why many people don't die? Because the cause is not inherently existing. Because if the conditions in the person is such that maybe he's healthy or strong or whatever, and then even the coming to the contact is not really the cause. So therefore, it doesn't mean the some things can't cause. It doesn't. At the same time, it does not mean that it is the only cause. Very, very important. Because what we do normally is when we see a problem, we say, he did this to me. And then one becomes so driven in thinking that is the only cause. They haven't investigated at all what predisposition of their own mind is making themselves vulnerable to feel affected by that thing at all. So when you're able to think like this, there's no intrinsically existing cause that exists by itself. So there's no intrinsically existing cause that actually produces the effect. It must meet with other causes and conditions. If the other causes and conditions are not dependently sort of vulnerable to the cause, then it cannot cause. So therefore, even merely coming into contact is not the cause of the illness, cause of death. It may be cause of the illness, but not cause of death. Is it? Sometimes the cause of illness is also food. People ate too much, and then they never thought it was cause of illness. They thought the cause of enjoyment. Yeah, they had a great time. It was an enjoyment. It was a great party. They had a big party. It is that at that dinner party they contracted the disease. But at the time they were eating, they were enjoying it. So the disease was just as cause of enjoyment as much of the illness. But it is not cause of death. Why? Because they didn't die. Think like that. It can really help us to relieve our worry and anxiety and learn to understand these things. When we have that, then it greatly empowers us. So we continue in the same point by next verse. Next verse, moving on the same. Chite kyugi gyuen rewu kepra meje techir re. Checha yumen reda gyune gyume chengyu yobamin. Kanjin dida nishar yane gyumatanga teichir dala kendu mingyun jikden baye ngobo namgyan yo. Wow. He says, well then, your cause produces no result. Therefore, wherefore the result, so-called, has no reality. And likewise, without a fruit, a cause is quite unjustified. Both terms, the effect and cause, resemble mere illusions. And therefore, I'm not wrong in granting that things of daily life exist, So this is very much helping to make us to act like a yogi. Try to see life itself as an illusion. And not to mention cause of death, Not to mention cause of death. Life itself is an illusion and cause of death is an illusion. Because when the person dies, I don't think virus lives on in the body. So this shows through analysis of contact and non-contact. If you say in either case that effect is not produced, then there is no effect. Without an effect, the cause would likewise not exist. The cause would be without a cause. The designation of cause is dependent on the result. Yeah, the virusness is not virusness is not able to identify even. Why is the virus not tested on the table and surface, on the doorknobs and why the table is not dying? Why is the surface top? Why the doorknobs? Why the railings on the staircase not dying by virus? Because virus landed there first. See, it's very, very important. So there must be a vulnerable cause, vulnerable life itself. Life itself is vulnerable. If the virus is truly existing, it will always exist wherever it is, wherever it is. So the designation of effect becomes the cause of designation of the cause. In the case of father and son, without depending on the designation of son, you cannot have the designation father. You can't go to the Centrelink office as I got 3 children and expect to get the family payment, You have to prove 3 children. You have to show 3 children. You have to show the 3 children. You can't say I'm father because you have to have the other children. Even that the 3 children would not be accepted as a proof. Why? Because they are not truly existing children. But they're not truly existing. You have to have a piece of paper saying date and you as a father and so on. They are interdependent. Yes, everything is so interdependent. Of course, the man as a being exists without depending on the son in that way, but the designation father arises only independent on the designation son or children. So without the designation son, there would be no designation father. Because there will be no cause for its designation, that's why the cause would be causeless without the result. So there's no truly existing cause. So this is very, very important because we think that is the cause. We really want to prove that is the truly existing cause, and we put into great many months, years, as if that is truly existing cause of whatever happened. And this society just go and try to hunt one truly existing cause. But if it did brought any justice, would be good, but it doesn't. It only brings, accelerate and escalate the very suffering. Neither of them won. They're just so deluded. And they waste so much time and resources in trying to go after one truly existing cause. So that's why the cause would be causeless without the result. Yeah. If you do analysis, it will come to this. But in the case of Madhyamika, both cause and effect are magical illusions. Yeah. So that both the cause and effect should be treated as a magical illusion. Why? If you think like that, you're not denying the existence of the illusion. But you're proving the illusion did exist, but it does not exist thereafter. Yeah, like a dream exists when you're dreaming, but when you woke up, there is no dreaming. And likewise, we are falling asleep to the notion that one is truly existing cause. So as long as we still keep falling asleep with that view, then we will keep the nightmare going on. But when you wake up from knowing that, investigating that there is not a truly existing thing, then we realize it's an illusion. Even life itself is an illusion, even without a virus. Look at the changes that your life happened only last couple of months, let alone years. Nature of your your standing in society, what you achieved, what you didn't, what you pleased, what you didn't please, and so on. They are all illusions. The yogi should think like that. Then you will not be so attached to as if something could be truly grasped to. There isn't nothing to be grasped to. Therefore, if they do not exist, it would be no fault from our point of view, because we do not believe in the true existence of cause and effect. So that's why it's very important to meditate on the lack of true existence of cause, and also lack of true existence result. This means, it doesn't mean lack of existence of cause. Lack of true, independent, permanently, singularly existing cause. In the same way as looking at cause and result as an illusion, all otherworldly things exist for us because we see all of them as illusion. So we should think like that. Even your promotion recently, you were promoted to that job only weeks ago, and now they don't want anybody working in that job. So your promotion is really illusion. Yeah, your promotion was just a short-lived promotion. Yeah, illusion does exist, but it's very short-lived. After the show is over, everybody's now wiping off their faces and all the makeups, and like that, everything in your life are illusions. So you shouldn't get attached to the good happenings as truly existing, nor the difficult ones as truly existing. You should see them all as illusions. That is acceptable to us. Cause and effect have no intrinsic nature. Through reasoning of contact or no contact, meeting or no meeting. Yeah, even if something did contact you, even if you did contract the virus, and so you have to realize there's got a lot of people, even if they die because of the virus, society says it's because of the virus. No, he has many medical complications before even that. How about all the people who die, the number of people die each day from other disease not reported every day? Why they don't report every day? They should. They should report just for change. Maybe some of the newspaper people, media people should just report for a change. Just how many people die today from every causes and conditions. Just report them. And among them, then just highlight those die of coronavirus. You will be surprised. You will be surprised. Everything is relative. Everything is relative to it. And third, the rejecting the true false, such as similar to yourself. This means that on this predication, the opponent finds true false, such as this is similar to yourself. If you analyze in this way to refute our theory, it will reverse your theory also. So we are not worried about your refutation. This has two subdivisions, but we won't go into that tonight, and we will stop there. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Hope I didn't muddle the point. Hope you all have a good, restful break, because we will not. We have the term break anyway, and if the term breaks or not, we will continue in the new term with this mode of transmission. But should the causes and condition all change, which usually do, of course we will inform you otherwise. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Good night.